Hey, what's cooking? I actually have a question for you. Do you think that simply relying on our own judgment, intuition, or simple common sense in order to execute day to day decisions or choices, is it so old school to rely on these things? Or do we actually need our phones to tell us what we should or should not buy, how we should feel or not feel every hour of the day? It has at least started to make me feel like it, okay? It dawned upon me the other day that my generation's biggest disability is the inability to decide for our own selves, all by our own selves, void of the access to internet. Don't get what I'm trying to say? Hear me out. If you're not a professional athlete, just ask yourself, when was the last time that you actually ran at the speed at which your body is telling you to do so? When was the last time that you exercised at the rate at which body is asking you to do so? I did not necessarily look at the health tracker on your wrist, how many calories you burned, how far along are you, or what is the intensity. When was the last time that you actually just got lost in the process of creating something worthwhile, forgot to keep a tab of time, or forgot to look at the notifications on your phone? Chances are maybe not in the recent time, if you're a mere mortal like I am. And even if it comes to you, probably it's sporadic and you don't enter a state of flow on a regular basis. Now I tell you why are the multiple reasons why that happens, right? Look, a lot of us are hyperstimulated by the information that is thrown at us on a day-to-day basis. A lot of us are overwhelmed by the information that are thrown at us on a day-to-day basis, especially when it involves a decision that we have to make. We get confused, we remain stuck. We can't execute as fast, right? Simply because there is overanalysis, what they call is overanalysis paralysis, right? And some of us are probably not even understanding why it's happening. It's happening because some of us are so hooked to receiving validation from the internet on a day-to-day basis around everyday choices that we don't even understand the risks that are coming with it. For example, the other day, me and my friends, we were passing by this restaurant, okay? And I've never seen this restaurant before, to be honest. My one friend looks at the menu on the window and decides, well, it's looking interesting, let's give it a try. I agree. I peep inside, I look at the ambience, it's semi-full at this point of time. I can't necessarily tell what's happening, but I'm like, you know what, let's just give it a try. What's the worst thing that could happen? We could have a set of apps, which is appetizers, and if we don't like it, we could leave. My third friend, Champion, doesn't even come in, doesn't even look at the menu, pulls straight phone out and starts looking at Google reviews. And now I'm like, you know what, it's good, we got all three bases covered, right? But they instantly decide that this place is not for them simply because there weren't as many reviews around that place. They came with us anyways because that's what friends do. They pull you into new experiences, right? And we ended up having a good time. But at the end of the night, they made a comment which got me thinking. They said, had it not been for us or in that moment, they would have never tried this restaurant before and probably would have just given it a miss. It got me thinking, what's happening to a sense of curiosity? What's happening to a sense of discovery? What's happening to that joy that you feel when you confront a new idea, new opinion, and when you discover it and explore it, right? Because of our phones. Is it slowly fading away? And it feels like it, that your phone is starting to take away the joy of things IRL, which is in real life. And look, it's not just my friend, me, or people my age. Everybody does that. We look at people's online profiles, we look at the followers that they have, we look at the comments that they're receiving, and we form quick judgment upon those people. Even if we are not necessarily a part of their life, we have an opinion on their life. Even if we don't necessarily know them personally, even before we've had a chance to sit with them face to face and see how it is we feel in their presence, we've decided whether they're for us or against us. And we don't just do this with people, we do this with ideas, businesses, services. We reject people basis their perception online. And I don't quite necessarily know if it's the right way to operate in everything that we do, right? Because to be honest, how on this are you going to develop any independent thinking, this ability to be different from the crowd, this ability to create something unique, your own judgment, intuition, if you're constantly depending on people around you to give you opinions around every decision that you make, if you're constantly looking at the internet to validate your day-to-day choices, if you're constantly asking your girlfriends group on which dress you should buy or should not buy, if you're constantly talking to your mates on whether this date is going to work out or not work out, even before you've actually had a chance to be on that date. And we all get stuck around these loops, right? We all get confused. One of the ways to disconnect from this loop is, I have realized, to sharpen your judgment and intuition. And the only way to do it is actually by executing stuff, is by actually just getting things wrong. Because what's the worst thing that could happen if you just listen to yourself? What's the worst thing that could happen if you listen to your own inner voice? Probably you'll get things wrong, but in the longer run, you'll sharpen your skills on executing decisions. You would have learned better, you would have gotten better simply by the practice of doing things, and not necessarily staying in your head all the time around these decisions that you should have or would have made if the environment was right. Look, I'm not saying the internet is out there to confuse you, okay? No. There's some really cool people out there, cool communities out there who could help you and who you could vibe with and build an association with. But simply because something is not present online or doesn't have a strong presence online doesn't necessarily mean it cannot be good IRL, in real life too. I'm not saying the world is out there to confuse you and lead you astray, but it's just that the more you surf, the more information that is out there around these decisions, personal decisions, the more you're likely to get confused, and people will lead you astray from your own inner voice, and they will lead you astray from listening to it. Not because they want to do so, simply because they wish well for you, and with all their genuine hearts sometimes, you could be a confused mess all the time, and this could build into a habit simply because you're not practicing enough discernment. Now, one thing that I have started to do around especially my personal life is that every time I have to make a big personal decision which has high impact, I switch off. I cut out all the noise, especially the online noise, because I've realized it just makes me more anxious. Especially when I was coming to New Zealand, 2-3 months leading up to it, there was a lot of news floating around, inflation, job losses, and all of that. And look, it is true, right? A lot of it was true. But I realized people were constantly throwing their opinions their way to me, whereas I'd already waited 2.5 years to come here because of the pandemic. So I just went ahead and rolled with it, and it has so far worked out for me. And there could be so many other examples that I could give you where people just constantly threw their opinions at me. And if I had listened to those opinions, they weren't wrong opinions. I wouldn't have just crafted a life or have been able to do half of the things that I am able to do right now, okay? So yeah, practice discernment whenever it is necessary. And if you feel like you actually need some help around some of your choices, then try and seek actually professional help. For example, the other day, I had a taxation challenge that I was stuck with, and I'd spent hours and hours on Quora at this point of time trying to solve it all on my own. How to fill this form, submit, and da. All that I had to do was pick up the phone and talk to a friend who was actually an accountant by profession, which I did after days. And they solved the whole thing in an hour. Sometimes the solutions to some of your biggest life's problems are not online, they are offline, right under your nose. And it's just that you've been ignoring them all along simply because you're too stuck up on your phone all the time reading. But I guess that's how I roll with these things. What are you doing to practice discernment? What are you doing to sharpen your judgment, intuition around some of everyday life choices? Do you even think about these things? Let me know about it in your comments. I'll be back to you soon again with a new video. Until then, you do not forget to keep hustling. Energy to all of you. Bye-bye.